start. Um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to Storytime with Srta Pikula. Hope that you're having a great day. Happy Monday. And today I'm going to give a shout out to Jackson. Jackson and I had a great conversation about Star Wars today. Um, it was fun. I like talking about Star Wars. Star Wars is really great. Star Wars is that thing that you do with your dad. You can do it with your mom too, but my experience it was, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so shout out to Jackson. And Jackson also, he works so hard and he impresses me every single day. Just with he likes to learn. So shout out to Jackson. And we're gonna continue reading a little bit of Don Treader. So last time was really funny. Because so everyone got captured by Pug. That Pug is a pirate. Pug the pirate, and all these people, slave traders, and Caspian got bought by this lord named Byrne, and so he was one of the seven. He recognized Caspian, and Caspian decided to reveal himself. And Lord Byrne is one of the seven lords who left during the reign of Miraz, Caspian's evil uncle. And eventually he settled on one of the lone islands, and he married this girlfriend there, and then he stayed there and never returned to Narnia. And so there's been a little bit of upheaval because people have forgotten about the king. And so anyways, their plan in trying to enter the lone islands, which is in this case Dorne, is the one that's populated by people, because Felmeth isn't really populated, and then Arva is populated also, and that's where Byrne lived. But they're trying to get into Narrowhaven, which is the main town where the governor is, Governor Gumpus. And all of the soldiers and the governor and everyone there we haven't met the governor yet, but everyone kind of seems haphazard and kind of sleepy and lazy and not really together because no one's really gone there for a long time. But Caspian only has about 30 men with him. But Byrne told him, okay, here, we're going to march in with everyone we have. But make it, send a fake signal to somebody to read and march in as if we have fleets of ships and armies with us, to give the impression that we're powerful, that you are the king of Narnia, because you are, but give that impression to the governor so that he'll surrender to you and not put up a big fuss. So it was kind of amusing because everyone in the town all of a sudden started saying, "Oh, look, a king!" and everyone was going along with it, and it seemed like he had way more people than he has with him. So he just got to the governor's where the governor is, and we're gonna see what happens next. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's keep going. The captain gaped, but Byrne immediately cried, "Three cheers for the king!" And the soldiers, who had understood about the cask of wine, even if they understood nothing else, joined in. Caspian then ordered his own men to remain in the courtyard. He, with Byrne and Drinian and 4 others, went into the hall. Behind a table at the far end with various secretaries about him sat His Sufficiency. Funny title, His Sufficiency, the governor of the Lone Islands. Gumpus was a bilious looking man with hair that had once been red and was now mostly gray. He glanced up as the strangers entered, and then looked down at his papers, saying automatically, "No interviews without appointment except between 9 and 10 p.m. on second Saturdays." Caspian nodded to Bern and then stood aside. Bern and Drinian took a step forward and each seized one end of the table. They lifted it and flung it on one side of the hall where it rolled over, scattering a cascade of letters, dossiers, ink pots, pens, sealing wax, and documents. Then, not roughly, but as firmly as as if their hands were pincers of steel, they plucked Bumpus out of his chair and deposited him facing it about 4 feet away. Caspian at once sat down in the chair and laid his sword across his knees. My lord, he said, fixing his eyes on Bumpus, you have not given us quite the welcome we expected. We are the King of Narnia. Nothing about it in the correspondence, said the governor. Nothing in the minutes. We have not been notified of any such thing. All irregular. Happy to consider any applications. And we are come to inquire into your sufficiency's conduct of your office, continued Caspian. There are 2 points especially on which I require an explanation. Firstly, I find no record that the tribute due from these islands to the crown of Narnia have been received for about 150 years. That would be a question to raise at the council next month, said Compass. He's talking about taxes, by the way. If anyone moves that a commission of inquiry be set up to report on the financial history of the island at the first meeting next year, why then, I also find it very clearly written in our laws, Caspian went on, that if the tribute is not delivered, the whole debt is to be paid by the governor of the Lone Islands out of his private purse, meaning his own money. At this, Bumpus began to pay attention for real. Oh, that's quite out of the question, he said. It is an economic impossibility. Your Majesty must be joking? Inside, he was wondering if there were any way of getting rid of these unwelcome visitors. Had he known that Caspian had only one ship and one ship's company with him, he would have spoken soft words for the moment and hoped to have all of them all surrounded and killed during the night. But he had seen a ship of war sail down the straits yesterday and seen it signaling, as he supposed, to its other team members, consorts. He had not then known it was the king's ship, for there was there was not wind enough to spread the flag out and make the golden line visible. So he had waited further developments. Now he imagined that Caspian had a whole fleet waiting at Bernstead. It would never have occurred to Bumpus that anyone would walk into Narrowhaven to take the island with fewer than 50 men. It was certainly not at all the kind of thing he could imagine doing himself. Secondly, said Caspian, I want to know why you have permitted this abominable and unnatural traffic in slaves to grow up here, contrary to the ancient custom and usage of our culture. Necessary, unavoidable, said his sufficiency, an essential part of the economic development of the islands, I assure you. Our present burst of prosperity depends on it. Have you a need of slaves? Asked Caspian. For export, your majesty. Sell them all to Calormen mostly, and we have other markets. We are a great center of trade. In other words, said Caspian, you don't need them. Tell me what purpose they serve except to put money into the pockets of such pirates as Pug. Your Majesty's tender years, said Compass, with what was meant to be a fatherly smile, hardly make it possible that you should understand the economic problem involved. I have statistics and graphs. I have tender as my years may be, said Caspian. I believe I understand the slave trade from within quite as well as your sufficiency. And I do not see that it brings into the islands meat or bread or drink or timber or cabbages or books or instruments of music or horses or armor or anything else worth having. But whether it does or not, it must be stopped. But that would be putting the clock back, gasped the governor. Have you no idea of progress or development? I have seen them both in an egg, said Caspian. We call it going bad in Narnia. This trade must stop. I can take no responsibility for any such measure, said Gumpus. Very well, then, answered Caspian. We relieve you of your office. My Lord Byrne, come here. And before Gumpus quite realized what was happening, Byrne was kneeling with his hands between the king's hands and taking the oath to govern the Lone Islands in accordance with the old customs, rights, usages, and laws of Narnia. And Caspian said, I think we have had enough of governors, and made Byrne a duke, the Duke of the Lone Islands. As for you, my lord, he said to Gumpus, I forgive you your debt for the tribute. But before noon tomorrow, you and yours must be out of this castle, which is now the Duke's residence. Look here, this is all very well, said one of Gumpus's secretaries, but suppose all your gentlemen stop play acting and we do a little business. The question is, interrupted the Duke, meaning Byrne, whether you and the rest of the rabble will leave without a flogging or with one. You may choose which you prefer. When all this had been pleasantly settled, Caspian ordered horses, of which there were a few in the castle, though very ill-groomed, and he, with Byrne and Drinian and a few others, rode out into the town and made for the slave market. It was a long, low building near the harbor, and the scene which they found going on inside was very much like any other auction. That is to say, there was a great crowd, and Pug, on a platform, was roaring out in a raucous voice. Now, gentlemen, lot 23, fine Terabinthian agricultural laborer, suitable for the mines or the galleys, under 25 years of age, not a bad tooth in his head, good brawny fellow. And let the gentleman see him now. There is muscle for you. Look at him. 10 crescents for the gentleman in the corner. You must be joking, sir. 15, 18. 18 is a bid for lot 23. Any advance on 18? 21. Thank you, sir. 21 is bid. But Pug stopped and gaped when he saw the mail-clad figures who clanked up to the platform. On your knees, every man of you, to the King of Narnia, said the Duke. Byrne. Everyone heard the horses jingling and stamping outside, and many had heard some rumor of the landing and the events at the castle. Most of the people present obeyed. Those who did not were pulled down by their neighbors. Some cheered. Your life is forfeit, Pug, for laying hands on our royal person yesterday, said Caspian, but your ignorance is pardoned. The slave trade was forbidden in all our dominions a quarter of an hour ago. I declare every slave in this market free. He held up his hand to check the cheering of the slaves and went on. Where are my friends? Asked Caspian. That dear little girl and the nice young gentleman, said Pug, with an gratiating smile. Why, they were snapped up at once. We're here, Caspian, cried Lucy and Edmund together. At your service, sire, piped Rickacheep from another corner. They had all been sold, but the men who had bought them were staying to bid for other slaves, and so they had not yet been taken away. The crowd parted to let the three of them out, and there was great hand-clasping and greeting between them and Caspian. 2 merchants of Calormen at once approached. The Calormen have dark faces and long beards. They wear flowing robes and orange-colored turbans, and they are a wise, wealthy, courteous, cruel, and ancient people. All that at the same time. They bowed most politely to Caspian and paid him long compliments, all about the fountains of prosperity irrigating the gardens of prudence and virtue, and things like that. But of course, what they wanted was the money they had paid. That is only fair, sir, said Caspian. Every man who has bought a slave today must have his money back. Pug, bring out your takings to the last minimum. A minim is the 40th part of a crescent. That means it's like equal to like a penny or a nickel. Does your good majesty mean to beggar me? Whined Pug. You have lived on broken hearts all your life, said Caspian. And if you are if you are beggared, it is better to be a beggar than to be a slave. But where is my other friend? Oh, him? Said Pug. Oh, take him and welcome. Glad to have him off my hands. I've never seen such a uh where am I? Shoot. I've never seen such a boar in the market in all my born days. Priced him at 5 crescents in the end, and even so, nobody would have him. Threw him in free with other lots, and still no one would have him. Wouldn't touch him, wouldn't look at him. Tax, bring out Sulky. Thus Eustace was brought out, and sulky he certainly looked. For though no one would want to be sold as a slave, it is perhaps even more galling to be a sort of utility slave whom no one will buy. He walked up to Caspian and said, I see, as usual, been enjoying yourself somewhere while the rest of us were prisoners. I suppose you haven't even found out about the British Council. Of course not. That night they had a great feast in the castle of Narrowhaven. And then, tomorrow for the beginning of our real adventures, said Reepicheep when he had made his bows to everyone and then went to bed. But it could not really be tomorrow or anything like it. For now they were preparing to leave all known lands and seas behind them, and the fullest preparations had to be made. The Dawn Treader was emptied and drawn on land by 8 horses over rollers, and every bit of her was gone over by the most skilled shipwrights. Then she was launched again and filled with necessities and watered as full as she could hold. That is to say, for 28 days. So 28 days of material. Even this, as Edmund noticed with disappointment, only gave them a fortnight's eastward sailing before they had to abandon their quest. A fortnight is, I taught this to people before. A fortnight is 2 weeks, so that's a middle, like half a month. While all of this was being done, Caspian missed no chance of questioning all the oldest sea captains whom he could find in Narrowhaven to learn if they had any knowledge or even any rumors of land further to the east. He poured out many a flagon of the castle ale to weather-beaten men with short gray beards and clear blue eyes, and many a tall yarn he heard in return. But those who seemed the most truthful could tell of no lands beyond the lone islands, and many thought that if you sailed too far east, you would come to into searches of a sea without lands that swirled perpetually around the rim of the world. And that, I reckon, is where your Majesty's friends went to the bottom. The rest had only wild stories of islands inhabited by headless men, floating islands, waterspouts, and a fire that burned along the water. Only one, to Reepicheep's delight, said, and beyond that, Aslan's country. But that's beyond the end of the world, and you can't get there. But when they questioned him, he could only say that he heard it from his father. Byrne could only tell them that he had seen his 6 companions sail away eastward, and that nothing had ever been heard of them again. He said this when he and Caspian were standing at the highest point of Arva, looking down on the Eastern Ocean. I have often been up here for a morning, said the Duke, and seen the sun come up out of the seas, and sometimes it looked as if it were only a couple of miles away. And I've wondered about my friends, and wondered what there is really behind that horizon. Nothing, most likely, yet I am always half ashamed that I stayed behind. But I wish your Majesty wouldn't go. We may need your help here. This closing the slave market might make a new world. War with Calormen, if is what I foresee. My liege, please think again. I have an oath, my Lord Duke, said Caspian. And anyway, What could I say to reap a sheep? And that's the end of the chapter. And the next chapter, chapter 5, is called The Storm and What Came of It. So that's where we're going to stop for today. And um, thanks for watching, whether you're watching now or you're watching later. And I hope that you have a really great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.